My daughter-in-law sent me a message. Plans changed. Mother-in-law, you aren't going on the cruise anymore. It's only for the 25 closest family members. I fell silent. I just did what she never imagined. I canceled my son's credit cards, and I disappeared. Days later, when they returned from their family trip, no one could say a single word. I had the phone in my hand when the world stopped. A message. That was all it took for 68 years of my life to crumble like a sandcastle. Plans change, mother-in-law. You aren't going on the cruise anymore. It's only for the 25 closest family members. I read those words once, twice, 3 times, hoping the letters would rearrange themselves, that they would say something different. But no, there they were, cold as steel, sharp as a knife in my stomach. Emily, my daughter-in-law, the woman who entered my family 15 years ago with a perfect smile and polite words. The same one who had just told me without saying it that I was not part of the closest. My hands were shaking holding the phone. I felt the air leave my lungs, like the walls of my living room were closing in on me. On the dining room table were the 2 suitcases I had packed with so much excitement. Inside the sky blue dress I bought especially for the gala dinner, the new shoes, the sunscreen, everything ready for the trip I had paid for myself. $20,000. That Caribbean cruise that Emily had dreamed of since she was a girl, that my son Daniel begged me to finance because the family needs these moments, Mom, that I organized thinking that finally, after giving so much, I would be included, that I would be for once part of the circle. But there was the truth, bright and cruel, on my phone screen. I was not close family. I was the wallet, the source of money, the old woman who signs checks and then gets left behind. I sat there on that armchair where I had rocked my grandchildren so many times, where I embroidered tablecloths for their house, where I waited for calls that almost never came, and something inside me, something that had endured years of subtle slights and honey-poisoned words, finally broke. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there. In that heavy silence that smells like cold coffee and dead hopes, holding a phone that had just confirmed what I always knew deep down. To them, I was expendable. But what Emily didn't know, what none of them imagined, is that this quiet woman, this understanding mother-in-law, who never made a fuss, had just made the most powerful decision of her life. I was going to disappear. And when they returned from their family trip, when they opened their wallets and checked their accounts, when they looked for the money they had gotten used to like breathing, no one, absolutely no one, would be able to say a single word. Because this time I was the one who changed the plans. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, if someone has made you feel like you are only useful when you give stay until the end. This story is just beginning, and what I did next changed everything. Subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel so you don't miss confessions like this. To understand why that message shattered me so much, you need to know how I got to that armchair, holding a phone that confirmed my worst nightmare. It all started 10 years ago when I lost Robert. My husband died of a heart attack while pruning the roses in the garden. He fell among the flowers he cared for so much, and I was left alone in a house that suddenly seemed too big, too silent, too empty. Daniel was my only son, my reason for living after Robert was gone. When he showed up at my door 3 days after the funeral with red eyes and a broken voice telling me, "Mom, I promise you will never be alone," I believed him. I wanted to believe him. Emily came into my life 6 months later. She was pretty polite with that smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. But Daniel looked at her like she was the sun. I thought, if he's happy, I'm happy. The wedding cost $45,000. I paid every cent. The hall, the catering, the music, even the wedding dress Emily chose from a high-end boutique downtown. "It's just that my family doesn't have the resources, Mom," Daniel explained. "You understand, right?" I understood. I always understood. 2 years later, they needed an apartment. Daniel worked in sales, but his salary barely covered the basics. "Mom, if we had our own place, we could grow. Start a real family. $480,000. That's what the 3-bedroom apartment in a residential area cost. I put it in his name, of course." So he has security, the notary told me. So my son has something of his own, I replied. Then came the business. A sports supplement store that Daniel swore would be our financial salvation. $75,000 in seed money. Inventory rent permits everything. In 2 years, I'll pay you back every last dollar, Mom. I swear on my father's grave. I never saw a cent back. But the grandchildren arrived, and with them new hope. Mason and Chloe, my beautiful babies. I thought with them everything would change, that the family would unite, that I would have a new purpose. I bought them cribs, strollers, clothes, diapers. I paid for pediatricians, daycare, swimming lessons. Every birthday was a party I financed. Every Christmas, I was the one who filled the tree with gifts. And the monthly allowance, $3,500. Every month religiously. To help with expenses, so Emily wouldn't have to work and could dedicate herself to the children. So my son wouldn't feel the weight of responsibility. In 10 years, I calculated once I invested so much in them. And what did I get in return? 5-minute calls on Sundays, forced visits on my birthday where Emily checked her phone every 10 seconds, grandchildren who called me Grandma Ophelia with the same distance they would greet a neighbor. But I kept giving, because that's what mothers do, right? We give until there's nothing left. We love until we forget to love ourselves. Emily was never openly cruel. She was worse than that. She was polite, correct, cold as marble. When I suggested something, she would smile. What a nice idea, mother-in-law. But I think we'll do it differently. When I arrived unannounced, her gaze said everything her mouth kept silent. What are you doing here? Daniel became a stranger with my face. He justified everything. It's just, Emily has her own way. You know how women are now, Mom. They're independent. She's just tired with the kids. Her family is different, more reserved. There was always an excuse. I was always the one who had to understand, adapt, be quiet. And I kept quiet, for years swallowing every slight like bitter but necessary pills. Until that message. Until they told me, without anesthesia, that after paying $20,000 for a cruise, I didn't deserve to be there. That I wasn't one of the closest. And there, sitting in that armchair with my bags packed and my heart shattered, something woke up in me. Something that had been asleep under years of submission and unrequited love. A cold, calculating, definitive anger. But before I acted, I needed to understand one more thing. I needed to confirm if this was a mistake, a bad last-minute decision, or if this was really how they saw me. What I discovered 3 days later removed every last trace of doubt. 3 days before I received that message, I still had hope. It was Thursday afternoon. I had gone to Daniel's apartment to bring them a casserole I had prepared, my mother-in-law's recipe, the recipe Robert loved, the one I guarded like a family treasure. I thought Emily would like it. I thought we could share something. I rang the bell twice. No one answered, but I heard voices inside. Laughter. I used the spare key Daniel had given me for emergencies. I walked in quietly, holding the hot casserole in my hands. Daniel, Emily, it's me, I brought food. More laughter from the master bedroom. And then I heard it. Emily's voice loud and clear, talking on speakerphone. Oh, Mom, you won't believe the act I had to pull. The old woman wanted to come on the cruise as if she was one of us. Can you imagine 7 days trapped on a boat with her following us everywhere, giving opinions no one asked for? I froze in the living room. The casserole dish trembled in my hands. Her mother's voice replied from the speaker. And what did you tell her? We're going to tell her there's no room, that the cruise is just for the 25 closest. Technically it's true, right? My family, the part of Daniel's family that matters, the kids, she doesn't fit in that category. Laughter. They both laughed, as if they were talking about canceling a magazine, not excluding the woman who had paid every dollar for that trip. But what about the money? Emily's mother asked. She paid for everything, didn't she? Oh, Mom, please, that money is already spent. Besides, it's the least she can do after everything Daniel puts up with. Do you think it's easy having a mother-in-law like that? Always interfering, always wanting to be in the middle of everything? I'm almost rid of her. After the cruise, I'm going to convince Daniel to set serious boundaries, that she only visits when invited. that she understands her place. Every word was a dagger, but the next sentence killed me. Besides, we've already gotten everything we could from her. The apartment is in Daniel's name. The business is already running. If she disappears tomorrow, she's served her purpose. It sounds ugly, but it's the truth. You're right, honey. She's done her part. Now let her enjoy her old age alone. Right. More laughter. I don't know how long I stood there in that living room I helped furnish, holding a casserole that suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. My legs wouldn't respond. My heart was beating so hard, I thought it would burst from my chest. I left the casserole on the dining room table carefully, as if it were glass. It made no sound. I walked out of the apartment backward like a sleepwalker and slowly closed the door. I got home without remembering how I drove. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same one I shared with Robert for 30 years, and there finally I cried. It wasn't a soft cry. It was a violent, desperate sob, the kind that comes from the depths of the soul. I cried for the 10 lost years, for every dollar given with love and received with contempt. For every call I waited for, that never came. For every fake hug, every false smile, every "we love you, Mom," that was never true. I cried until there were no tears left. And then in that silence, broken only by my ragged breathing, I picked up the photo of Robert I always keep on my nightstand. I looked into his eyes, those brown eyes that always made me feel protected, loved, valued. "Forgive me, my love," I whispered to the photograph. "Forgive me for letting our son become this, for not setting boundaries, for confusing love with submission." I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me harden like clay turning to brick in a kiln. The next day, Daniel called. "Mom, did you come by the house yesterday? Emily found a casserole on the table." "Yes, son. I brought you food." "Oh, that's nice. Hey, about the cruise. There's a small change of plans." And then the message arrived. The message that would confirm everything I had heard. But this time, when I read those cold words, when I saw that my son didn't even have the courage to tell me himself something strange happened, I no longer felt pain. I felt clarity. A cold, sharp, perfect clarity like a diamond. Because I finally understood something I should have understood years ago. The love you beg for is worthless. The respect you plead for is a lie. And the family that only looks for you when they need something isn't family. It's a business. And I had just decided to close that business. Forever. After reading that message, I did something that surprised even me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't call Daniel to yell at him. I didn't call Emily to tell her everything I thought. I simply replied, "I understand. Enjoy your trip." 5 words. Nothing more. Emily answered in seconds. "Thanks for understanding, mother-in-law. I knew you'd take it well. It's just that space is limited, and we preferred something more intimate." Intimate. 25 people was intimate. I didn't reply. I just left the phone on the table and stared at those open suitcases full of clothes I would never wear on that ship. The sky blue dress seemed to mock me. Daniel didn't call. Not that day or the next. Not even a message asking how I was. If I was hurt. If I needed anything. Nothing. And that indifference, that icy silence, hurt more than all of Emily's cruel words combined, because it confirmed what I already knew. I had raised a son who saw me as an errand, something to be handled with a text message and forgotten. For 3 days, I locked myself in my house. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't open the curtains. I barely ate. I just sat in the dim light surrounded by photographs of a family that no longer existed, or maybe never had. Mason as a baby in my arms. Chloe blowing out her 3rd birthday candles. Daniel graduating from college hugging me saying, "I did it because of you, Mom." Lies. All lies wrapped in photo paper. On the 3rd day, someone knocked on my door. It was Linda, my neighbor, my only true friend in this world that had become so lonely. "Ophelia, open up. I know you're in there." I didn't want to see her. I didn't want anyone to see me like this. Broken, defeated, finished. But Linda is persistent. She kept knocking until I had no choice but to open. She looked me up and down, my wrinkled robe, my uncombed hair, my eyes swollen from crying. She said nothing. She just walked in, closed the door, and hugged me. And there, in the arms of a woman who didn't share my blood but shared my pain, I cried again. I told her everything. The message, the conversation I overheard, the 10 years of giving without receiving, the $1 million invested in a family that saw me as an ATM, the cruise I paid for that I wasn't invited to. Linda listened in silence, holding my hands. When I finished, her eyes were full of tears, but her voice was firm as steel. Until when, Ofe? Until when are you going to let them use you like this? He's my son, Linda. He's all I have left of Robert. No, she said, squeezing my hands. Robert left you much more than an ungrateful son. He left you beautiful memories. He left you this house. He left you savings. And above all, he left you. You. That strong woman I met 20 years ago. The one who built a business with her husband. The one who faced life without fear. Where is that Ophelia? I was silent because she was right. Somewhere along the way, between changing diapers and signing checks, between begging for love and pleading for attention, I had disappeared. What do I do? I whispered. How do I live knowing my own son sees me like this? Linda looked me straight in the eye. You respect yourself. That's what you do. You show them you are not a resource. You are a person. And if they don't understand that, let them learn to live without you. That night, after Linda left, I sat in my dining room with an old notebook and a pen. I started writing. Numbers, dates, amounts. Apartment $480, $1,000. Business $75,000. Wedding $45,000. Monthly allowances for 10 years, $420,000. Grandchildren's expenses, gifts, emergencies, approximately $55,000 more. Total, over $1 million in a decade. I closed the notebook, I turned off the light, and in the darkness of my house, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to beg for their love or respect. I wasn't going to explain how much they had hurt me. I was going to do something much more powerful. I was going to disappear, and when they wanted to find me, when they needed something, when they opened their bank accounts and saw the money was no longer flowing, then and only then would they understand what they had lost. Monday at 9 in the morning. I walked into the bank with my back straighter than ever. I wore my best suit, the pearl gray one Robert gave me for our 20th anniversary. I put on makeup, did my hair, wore my pearl earrings. I needed to look like what I was, a woman with the power to decide, not a victim. Good morning, Mrs. Ophelia, greeted Ricardo, the executive, who had managed my accounts for years. How can I help you? I need to cancel some additional credit cards, I said with a calmness that surprised me. Ricardo checked his computer. The cards in your son Daniel's name, correct. They have an $18,000 limit. Those are the ones. Cancel them. There was an awkward silence. Ricardo looked at me with genuine concern. Mrs. Ophelia, are you sure these cards have been active for 8 years? Did something happen? Nothing that concerns you, Ricardo. Just do as I ask. He typed nervously. Done. The cards will be inactive in 1 hour. Anything else? Yes. I want to withdraw $40,000 in cash. Now he was alarmed. Ma'am, that's a considerable amount. Wouldn't you prefer a transfer? It's safer. In cash, Ricardo. He made me sign papers. He asked for additional ID. He warned me about the risks of carrying so much cash. I just nodded, waiting. 40 minutes later, I walked out of the bank with an envelope full of bills in my purse. The second stop was with the same executive, 30 minutes later. I also want to cancel the automatic monthly transfer. The $500 one that's deposited into your son's account on the 5th of every month. That one. Ricardo didn't ask any more questions. I think he understood something serious had happened. Do you want to keep your investments and other accounts intact? Of course. Just cancel everything related to Daniel. When I left the bank, I felt something strange in my chest. It wasn't relief. It wasn't satisfaction. It was freedom. Like when you take off a shoe that's been pinching you for so long, you forgot how it felt to walk without pain. But I wasn't finished. I went straight to Mr. Campus's office, the trusted lawyer who handled Robert's will, a 70-year-old man, serious, a man of few words. I need to update my will, I told him bluntly. He looked at me over his glasses. Any problems, Ophelia? Let's just say I've gained some clarity. We spent 2 hours reviewing documents. The apartment was in Daniel's name. Nothing I could do there. But my house, my savings, my investments, everything else, I could control that. I want to leave very specific instructions, I said. If anything happens to me, my house does not go to Daniel. It goes to a foundation for supporting elderly women who have been abandoned. Mr. Campos raised an eyebrow. That's unusual. It's fair. And your savings? The same. Daniel already received his inheritance in life, more than most children ever receive. I signed the documents with a firm hand. The lawyer prepared a sealed copy that I kept in a safe deposit box. Another copy stayed in his office with clear instructions. If Daniel asked for me, he could give him the letter I was leaving. The letter simply said, "Son, if you are reading this, it's because you are looking for me. I hope it's because you are worried, not because you need something. I went to find the peace I couldn't find in my own family. Don't look for me. When I'm ready, I will find you. Your mother, Ophelia." I left the office feeling like I had just closed a chapter, but the most important part remained. I went back to my house and started packing. Not the cruise suitcases. I left those open on the bed as evidence of a life that no longer served me. I packed another suitcase. Comfortable clothes, flat shoes, photos of Robert, my grandmother's recipe book, my important documents. I called Linda. "Can you watch my house? What are you going to do, Of?" "Something I should have done years ago. I'm going to disappear." "Where will you go?" "Remember Haven Bay, the town where Robert and I used to vacation." "Oh, Ophe, you haven't been there in years." "Exactly. No one will look for me there. No one knows I still have connections in that place." Linda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "When are you leaving?" "Tomorrow, before they realize the cards don't work, before Daniel gets on that ship and forgets all about me. And if they look for you, let them look. You don't know anything. Just tell them I went on a trip and I'll be back when I feel like it." That night, I packed the last few things. I disconnected the landline. I put my cell phone in a plastic bag, ready to turn it off. I left the house spotless, as if I were coming back tomorrow. But I wasn't coming back soon. In the early hours of Tuesday before dawn, I put my 2 suitcases in the car. I looked at my house one last time. That house where I was a wife, a mother, a grandmother, where I was happy and then where I was forgotten. I locked the door, started the engine, and disappeared. Daniel, Emily, and the kids boarded their cruise that Thursday. They took smiling photos on the deck, toasted with champagne I paid for, enjoyed dinners I financed. But when Daniel tried to pay for the premium drinks, when he wanted to book the spa for Emily, when they tried to charge the excursions in Cozumel, all the cards were declined, one after another. Insufficient funds. And me. Meanwhile, I was 300 miles away, feeling the sea breeze on my face, and remembering for the first time in years who I was before I became my own family's bank. I wasn't there to see it, but I imagined it perfectly. Daniel on the ship's deck in his white linen shirt and those expensive sunglasses I gave him for his birthday. Emily at his side in a sundress that probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. The kids running around. Emily's family taking pictures. Happy. Celebrating. Celebrating a trip I paid for, to which I was not invited. I imagined it all. And strangely, it didn't hurt anymore. I just felt a cold calm, like when you see storm clouds in the distance and know you're not going to get wet because you're already under shelter. According to what Linda told me later, it all started the first day on the ship. Daniel wanted to order a bottle of wine at dinner, an $80 wine. Nothing crazy for someone used to his mother paying for everything. He handed the card to the waiter. "Declined, sir." "Impossible. Try again." The waiter tried 3 times. The same screen, the same word, declined. "It must be a system error," Daniel said, sweating. He pulled out the other card, the backup. "Try this one." Same result. Emily looked at him from across the table with those eyes I knew well, the eyes that said seriously, "You're going to embarrass me in front of my family." "Excuse me?" Daniel said, getting up. "I'm going to call the bank. It must be a security issue because we're traveling." But it wasn't a security issue. He called the bank from his cabin. The automated recording informed him, "The cards ending in 4829 and 5561 have been canceled at the request of the primary cardholder." Daniel dialed my number. Once, twice, 10 times. Voicemail. "Mom, call me. There's a problem with the cards. You must have canceled something by mistake. Please call me urgently." I was in Haven Bay, with my phone off, walking barefoot on the beach, feeling the sand between my toes. Free. The second day of the cruise, Emily wanted to book a spa treatment. Hot stone massage, facial manicure. The whole $250 package. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We need a valid payment method." "My husband has onboard cards." "Yes, but for premium services we need an additional charge, and the cards you registered aren't working." Emily had to cancel. In front of her mother and sisters, who already had their appointments confirmed. The humiliation in her eyes must have been delicious. The third day, the excursions in Cozumel. Everyone got off the ship excited. Emily's family booked a private snorkeling tour. $400 per person. Daniel tried to join. "How will you be paying, sir?" "Credit card. You already know the result." Emily's family left on the private boat. Daniel, Emily, and the kids were left on the dock watching them go. Mason asked, "Dad, why aren't we going?" He had no answer. They ended up taking a $5 group tour, sharing a boat with 30 other tourists. Emily didn't speak the entire time. She just stared at the horizon, her jaw tight. That night in the cabin, she exploded. "What did you do to your mother? Why did she cancel the cards?" "I don't know, Emily. She's not answering. No calls, no messages. It's like she vanished." "Well, you'd better fix it. You're making me look ridiculous in front of my family. Do you know how many times my sister has commented that we can't afford anything? How many pitying looks I've gotten? And what do you want me to do? I don't know where she is. Find her. She's your mother, for God's sake. How can she just disappear like this?" Daniel tried calling Linda. She answered with a calm, almost bored voice. "Ophelia." "Oh, yes. She told me she was going on a trip. Didn't say where. Said she needed time for herself." Time for herself. Seriously, right now. "Daniel, your mom is 68 years old and has never done anything for herself. I think she deserves it. Don't you?" "Did she say when she's coming back?" "No, and frankly I wouldn't be surprised if she takes all the time in the world." He hung up. The rest of the cruise was a silent disaster. Daniel and Emily ate at the basic buffet while the rest of the family went to the specialty restaurants. They drank water while others ordered cocktails. They stayed on the ship while others went shopping in the ports. And every time Emily's parents asked, "Are you sure you don't want to come? Are you on a budget?" the humiliation grew. On the last day when the ship returned to port, Daniel had deep, dark circles under his eyes. Emily hadn't spoken a word to him in 2 days. The kids were confused, feeling the tension but not understanding it. As they disembarked, Emily whispered to him with venom, "Your mother did this to us on purpose. And when you find her, you're going to have to choose Daniel. It's either her or me, because I refuse to keep living like this." Daniel nodded, defeated. In his mind, I was the villain, the selfish mother who had abandoned them at the worst possible time. They still didn't understand anything. Because while they were getting off that ship humiliated and confused, I was in Haven Bay drinking coffee on the porch of a small house facing the sea, watching the sunrise, and feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. And I was just getting started. Because what they would find when they got home, what they would discover in the next few days, that was what would truly change everything. Haven Bay hadn't changed in 10 years. The same cobblestone streets, the same colorful houses faded by the sun, the same smell of salt and fresh tortillas coming from the diners at dawn. Robert and I used to come here every summer when Daniel was a boy, before money became the only thing that connected us. I rented a small house 2 blocks from the beach. $50 a night, nothing fancy. 2 rooms, a kitchen with a gas stove, a porch with a wicker rocking chair. But it had something my house in the city had lost years ago. Silence. The first few days I just walked. On the beach along the boardwalk through the small market where the ladies sold fresh fish and mangoes so sweet the juice ran down your elbows. No one knew me. No one asked me for anything. No one expected me to be anyone other than an older woman enjoying the sea. I was invisible, and for the first time in my life, that felt like a gift. One morning I found a bookstore on the corner of the main square. It was old, with a faded wooden sign that said, "Books of the Sea." The windows were full of used novels, some with pages yellowed by the salt air. I went in more out of curiosity than anything else. Inside it smelled like old paper and coffee. The shelves reached the ceiling so full it seemed the books were holding each other up. And behind the counter an older man was reading with thick glasses and a steaming mug in his hand. He looked up when the light from the door came in. "Good morning. Come in, make yourself at home." He was 72, I learned later. White hair, deep wrinkles around his eyes, large hands full of small scars, hands that told stories. I stared at the books without really seeing them. He went on reading, not pressuring me to buy anything. That comfortable silence was something I hadn't experienced since Robert died. "Looking for anything in particular?" he finally asked. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I think I'm just looking for a place where nobody knows me." He nodded as if that were the most normal thing in the world. "This is a good place for that. I've been here 15 years, and there are still days when people forget my name." He made me laugh, a small, rusty but real laugh. "I'm Angel," he said, extending a hand over the counter. "Ophelia." "First time in Haven Bay, Ophelia." "No. I used to come here many years ago, with my husband. And now you travel alone." I hesitated, but there was something in his eyes, something warm and without judgment, that made me want to talk. "Now I'm traveling because I needed to get away from my family." Angel wasn't surprised. He just pointed to a chair next to the counter. "Sit down. I just made coffee. And if you want to talk, I know how to listen. If you don't, that's fine too. But no one should drink coffee alone." And so it began. I sat in that rickety chair with a mug of hot coffee in my hands, and I started to talk. Slowly at first, like someone testing the water with a toe. Then faster, like a river that finds a crack in a dam and can't be stopped. I told him everything. Emily's message, the conversation I overheard, the $1 million invested in a son who saw me as an ATM, the canceled cards, the disappearance. Angel didn't interrupt once. He just drank his coffee, nodded, and looked at me with those eyes that had seen a lot of the world. When I finished, there were tears on my cheeks. I hadn't even realized I was crying. "I'm sorry," I said, wiping my face, embarrassed. "I don't know why I'm telling you all this. You don't even know me." "That's exactly why," he replied gently. "Sometimes it's easier to talk to a stranger than to someone who thinks they know you." He was quiet for a moment, looking at his empty mug. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You know, Ophelia, my wife died 15 years ago. Cancer. When she passed, my 3 children fought over the inheritance before she was even cold. They wanted the house, the savings, even the furniture. Not one of them asked how I was. Not one invited me to live with them. They just wanted what was theirs." I stayed quiet. "You know what I did," he continued. "I came here. I sold everything. I bought this bookstore. And I told my children that when they learned to see me as a father and not an inheritance, they could come find me. And did they?" He smiled sadly. "One did. After 5 years. He showed up with tears in his eyes, asking for forgiveness. The other 2 are still waiting for me to die to see what's left for them. Doesn't it hurt? Every day. But you know what hurt more? The years I wasted begging for their love, justifying their selfishness, confusing my obligation to give to them with their obligation to love me." He looked me straight in the eye. "The love you beg for is worthless, Ophelia. Your son needs to learn that you are a blessing, not an obligation, and if he never learns it, at least you will live with dignity." Those words hit me like a wave. A blessing, not an obligation. When had I stopped feeling like a blessing to my family and started feeling like a burden who was only useful when she brought money? I left that bookstore with swollen eyes, but with something new in my chest. It wasn't happiness, not yet. It was more like hope. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, my life hadn't ended when Robert died. that maybe there was still something of me left worth rescuing. I went back to the bookstore the next day, and the next, and the next. Angel and I talked about everything, about books, about life, about the sea. He told me about his wife, how they met dancing at a town fair. I told him about Robert, how I fell in love with a man who made me feel like the world was bigger and brighter just by being at his side. You know what I miss most? I told him one afternoon as we watched the sunset from the bookstore's porch. I miss feeling important, not for what I can give, but for who I am. Angel smiled. Ophelia, you are important. You were just looking for validation from the wrong people. 2 weeks passed, then 3. My phone was still off. I didn't know what was happening in the city. I didn't want to know. Every morning I walked on the beach. Every afternoon I visited Angel at the bookstore. At night, I sat on my porch listening to the waves and wrote in an old notebook. I wrote everything I had kept silent for years. The anger, the pain, the disappointment. But I also wrote about the sea, about the coffee, about the conversations with a wise old man who was teaching me to see myself through different eyes. And slowly, very slowly, something inside me began to heal. But peace doesn't last forever, because one afternoon while I was helping Angel organize books in the back room, Linda finally managed to track down the phone at the only hotel in town. Oph, I found you, and I need you to know something. Daniel is desperate. He's been to your house every day. The business is in trouble. Emily is driving him crazy. And now, he's coming your way. Linda told him where you are. My blood ran cold. When does he get here? Tomorrow. I hung up the phone with shaking hands. Angel looked at me from behind the counter. The storm has arrived. I nodded. Then prepare yourself, Ophelia, because this is going to be the most important conversation of your life. Daniel arrived in Haven Bay the next day around noon. I saw him from the bookstore window. His gray SUV, the one I helped him buy 3 years ago, kicked up dust on the dirt road. He was alone. No Emily, no kids. He parked in front of the square and got out clumsily as if he hadn't slept in days. He was wearing the same wrinkled clothes, a beard of several days' dark circles so deep they looked like bruises. He looked destroyed. And for a second, just 1 second, my mother's heart wanted to run out and hug him, to tell him everything would be okay to fix whatever was broken in his life. But then I remembered the message, the conversation, the 10 years of contempt disguised as love. And I stayed still. Angel put his hand on my shoulder. Do you want me to stay with you? No, I have to do this alone. I left the bookstore before Daniel could see me there. I walked to the little house I was renting, knowing he would ask and someone would tell him where I was. This town was small. Secrets didn't last long. I sat on the porch in the wicker rocking chair and waited. It took him 20 minutes to find me. When he appeared at the corner, sweating from the heat and desperation, our eyes met. And I saw something in his eyes I didn't expect to see. Fear. Mom, he said, his voice breaking. Mom, I finally found you. I didn't answer. I just looked at him, waiting. He approached the porch, climbed the steps as if his feet were made of lead, and collapsed on the floor in front of me. He literally knelt there on those old wooden planks and began to cry. Forgive me. Please forgive me. He cried like a child with sobs that shook his whole body, and I just sat there rocking my chair slowly, saying nothing, because there were words that needed to come out of him before I could say mine. I don't know what happened, he said between sobs. One day we were on the cruise and suddenly everything fell apart. The cards didn't work. You didn't answer. When we got back, the monthly allowance didn't arrive. The bank told me you canceled everything, and you just disappeared. I remained silent. The business has debts, Mom. $8,500 that I can't pay. The suppliers are calling me every day. I had to sell the SUV. I managed to get $38,000 for it, but it all went to paying off the most urgent things. Now we're driving an old car that barely runs. Well, that surprised me. The SUV he showed off so much. Sold. Emily is furious. She says this is my fault, that I should have taken better care of you, maintained the relationship. Her family humiliated her the whole cruise. And when we got back, when they found out we had no money, they started treating us differently. Colder. More distant. How ironic. Now he was experiencing what I had lived through for years. The kids ask about you. Mason asks why Grandma Ofe doesn't come to see them anymore. Chloe drew a broken heart and asked me if she did something wrong. That hurt. The children weren't to blame. Daniel looked up, his eyes red and swollen. Why, Mom? Why did you leave like that? Why did you punish us this way? And that's when I finally spoke. Punish you. My voice came out colder than I expected. Daniel, I didn't punish you. I just stopped being your ATM. He fell silent, but there was confusion on his face, as if he genuinely didn't understand. I took an envelope from my bag, the envelope I had prepared with Mr. Campos, the breakdown of every dollar invested in him for 10 years. Read it, I said. He opened it with trembling hands. I watched his eyes scan the figures. Apartment, business, wedding, monthly allowances, grandchildren's expenses, gift after gift after gift. Over $1 million, I said when he finished reading. That's what I invested in you in 10 years, Daniel. Over $1 million. Mom, I didn't know it was that much. No, of course you didn't know, because you never asked. You never cared where the money came from, only that it kept coming. That's not true. I love you, Mom. You love me. Really. I leaned forward in the rocking chair. Do you know how many times you called me last year? 12. 12 times in 365 days. And of those 12, 10 were to ask me for money or a favor. He was speechless. Do you know what I heard 3 days before you sent me that message, Daniel? He looked at me with genuine fear. I went to your apartment to bring you food. You were in the bedroom. Emily was on the phone with her mother, and I heard her say clearly that she was almost rid of the old woman, that I wasn't going on the cruise because I wasn't part of the closest, that you had already gotten everything you could from me, and that if I disappeared tomorrow, I had already served my purpose. Daniel turned pale. And do you know what the worst part was, son, that you never defended me? That when that message came excluding me from the trip I paid for, you didn't even have the courage to call me. You sent me a text message, like I was a secretary you were canceling an appointment with. Mom, You turned me into your ATM, Daniel. You took away the only thing I had left after losing your father, my dignity. Tears were streaming down his face, but I couldn't stop now. 10 years of silence poured out of me like a flood. Do you have any idea how many nights I cried alone in that house? How many times I prepared food to bring you and Emily, left it in the fridge untouched? How many times your children called me only because you forced them to? I'm sorry, I'm truly sorry. You know what a friend told me a few weeks ago, I continued. He said the love you beg for is worthless, and he was right. I spent 10 years begging for your love, justifying your selfishness, confusing my obligation to give to you with your obligation to love me. Daniel was sobbing on the porch floor, completely broken. I loved you with everything I had. I said, my voice breaking now, too. I gave you everything. My time, my money, my peace, and you gave me scraps. 5-minute calls, forced visits. Grandchildren who see me as a stranger because you never taught them to value me. What do you want me to do? He asked between sobs. Tell me what to do, Mom. I'll do anything. I was quiet for a long moment, looking at this 40-year-old man kneeling on my porch, pleading. He looked like a lost child, and a part of me wanted to fix everything, to go back to being the mother I always was. But the other part, the part that had grown in these weeks by the sea, the part that learned to value herself, that part said, I don't want you to do anything for me, Daniel. I want you to do it for yourself. And because if you don't learn now, if you don't understand what you did wrong, you're going to repeat this with your children. And one day Mason or Chloe will look at you the same way you looked at me, as a resource, not as a person. I don't I don't see you like that." "Yes, you do. Maybe not consciously. But when you only call when you need something, when you justify every slight from your wife, when you exclude me from a trip I paid for. Yes, you see me like that." I stood up from the rocking chair. He remained kneeling. "I'm going back to the city," I said, "but not to your life. Not yet. First, I need you to prove something to me." "What?" "That you can live without my money, that you can support your family on your own, that you can teach your children that their grandmother is a person who deserves respect, not a wallet with legs. And if I change, then maybe, just maybe, we can rebuild something, but it will be something different. Because I am no longer the mother who puts up with everything. Now I am the woman who only accepts what she deserves." I left him there on the porch crying as I had never seen him cry. I went into the little house, closed the door, and leaned against it trembling. It had been the hardest conversation of my life, but also the most necessary. Daniel stayed in Haven Bay for 2 more days. Not in my little house. I told him if he wanted to talk, we would meet in public places. I was no longer going to let him invade my space, my peace, my little refuge by the sea. We met in the square on the boardwalk at the local diner. Short, awkward conversations full of heavy silences that neither of us knew how to fill. He told me things I already knew, but that hurt more coming from his mouth. The business was on the verge of closing. Without the monthly deposits, he couldn't cover expenses. He had to lay off 2 employees. Suppliers were threatening to sue. Emily blamed him for everything. "You ruined the relationship with your mother. You let her leave. You got us into this mess." They argued every night, in front of the children. The yelling had become routine. Emily's family had begun to distance themselves. They were no longer invited to gatherings. Calls weren't answered with the same warmth, because without money, without the appearance of success, Daniel and his family were no longer interesting. "I feel so alone, Mom," he told me one afternoon as we watched the sunset from the boardwalk. "Emily looks at me like I'm a failure. The kids feel the tension, and I don't know how to fix this." I wanted to tell him that money doesn't fix everything, that he was learning that lesson the hard way. But I kept quiet. There were lessons he needed to learn on his own. On the 3rd day, as he was about to leave, he found me at the bookstore. Angel was with me organizing books. When Daniel walked in, Angel looked at me as if asking if he should leave. I shook my head. I needed a witness for this. "Mom," Daniel said, his voice firmer than it had been in days, "I need to ask you something." "Go on." "I need you to come back, to come home, for us to go back to how we were before." There was a long silence. So long I could hear the wall clock ticking. "How we were before," I repeated slowly. "You mean when I gave everything and you took without even saying thank you, when you only called when you needed something, when you excluded me from trips I paid for? No, Mom, I mean when we were a family." "Daniel," I said, and my voice sounded tired. "We were never a family. I was the bank and you were the clients." "That's not fair." "Not fair." I felt the anger I had been controlling start to rise. "You know what's not fair, investing over $1 million in a son who can't call once a week just to ask how you are. That's not fair." Daniel looked down. "I'm going to ask you a question," I continued, "and I want you to be completely honest. When was the last time you asked me how I was? Not my health, not my money. Me, my feelings, my dreams, my loneliness." He stayed quiet, thinking, searching his memory. He found nothing. "You don't remember, do you?" My voice broke. "Because you never asked. In 10 years, Daniel, 10 years since your father died and I was left alone in that huge house, you never asked if I was lonely, if I missed anyone, if I needed company that I didn't have to buy with checks. Mom, let me finish." I held up a hand. "When your father died, you told me I would never be alone. Remember 3 days after the funeral? You promised me, and I believed you." Tears started to run down my cheeks. "But I was alone, son, terribly alone. in that house that felt too big, too silent, too empty, and I thought that if I kept giving, if I kept being useful, maybe the days wouldn't feel so empty. Maybe you would call more often. Maybe you would truly love me. Daniel was crying now too. But love doesn't work that way. You can't buy it with apartments or monthly allowances. You can't beg for it with gifts or checks. It's given freely or it's worthless. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I know. But it's not enough to be sorry. You need to understand what you did wrong. You need to learn that I am a person, not a solution to your problems. I wiped my tears. You know what I've discovered in these weeks here? I've discovered I can be happy without you. That I can wake up in the morning without worrying if you'll call or not. That I can walk on the beach and feel peace instead of anxiety. That I can have real conversations with people I barely know because they see me as Ophelia, not as the mother-in-law with money. Angel, who had been silent the whole time, nodded from his spot by the shelf. So what do you want from me? Daniel asked, his voice broken. What do I have to do? I want you to learn to live without my money. I want you to save your business with your own effort. I want you to teach your children that their grandmother is a person who deserves love, not a machine that spits out cash. And if I can't, if I fail, then you will fail, and you will learn, because that's how you grow, Daniel, by falling and getting back up, not by waiting for someone else to always catch you. I took another thicker envelope from my bag. This, I said, handing it to him, is a notarized document. It's the complete breakdown of everything I invested in you, every dollar, every date, every item. He opened it, page after page of numbers, receipts, transfers. I'm not giving it to you to collect, I clarified. I'm giving it to you so you can see it, so you understand the magnitude of what you received. And so that one day when Mason or Chloe ask you for something, you remember this, and you don't make the same mistakes I made with you. What mistakes? Giving you everything without teaching you to value it, solving all your problems without letting you learn, loving you so much that I forgot to teach you how to love back. Daniel clutched the envelope to his chest, weeping. I'm going to change, Mom, I swear it. I'm going to be better. Don't swear it to me, I said softly. Swear it to yourself and to your children, because they are the ones who will live with the man you become. He just stood there in the middle of the bookstore holding that envelope like it was the heaviest thing in the world. And maybe it was, because the weight of guilt, the weight of understanding how much damage you did without realizing it, that weight isn't measured in pounds. Are you coming back? He finally asked. Yes, but not yet. And when I do return, I'm not going to your house. I'm going to mine, and you will come only when I invite you, and only if you learn to treat me as what I am, your mother, not your solution. He nodded, defeated. Can I hug you? I hesitated, but in the end I nodded. He approached slowly, as if afraid I would disappear. He hugged me with desperation, with that cry of a child who realizes he broke something he doesn't know how to fix. I love you, Mom, he whispered against my shoulder. I love you too, son. That's why I'm doing this. Because true love isn't letting someone use you. It's teaching them to be better. He left that afternoon. I watched him get into his old car and drive off down the dirt road, kicking up dust that glowed golden in the afternoon light. When he was out of sight, Angel came over and put a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, Ophelia. Then why does it hurt so much? Because love always hurts when it has to choose between the heart and dignity. But you chose well. I stood there in the doorway of the bookstore watching the empty road, and for the first time in 10 years, I felt I was finally setting the boundaries I should have set long ago. But this was just the beginning, because when I returned to the city weeks later, what I found, that changed everything forever. I returned to the city 6 weeks later. I didn't call ahead. I just woke up one day in Haven Bay, looked at the sea, and knew it was time to go back. Not because I missed them, but because I was finally ready to face my life with the strength I had found by the waves. Angel saw me off in the square with a long hug and a book wrapped in brown paper. For the road, he said, And so you remember you always have a friend here. Will I see you again? If you want to, but not as the woman who ran away, as the woman who chose to stay with herself. I drove the 5 hours back with the windows down, feeling more alive than ever. When I got to my house, Linda was waiting on the porch with a huge smile and tears in her eyes. Oh, I thought you'd never come back." I thought so too. She hugged me tight, and we went inside that house I had left empty weeks before. It smelled musty of dust of abandonment, but it also smelled like home. "I have to tell you everything that happened," Linda said, making coffee. And a lot had happened. Daniel had returned devastated. Emily met him with fury, with accusations, with threats of divorce. "Your mother abandoned us because of you," she yelled. But something had changed in Daniel. For the first time in 15 years, he stood up to her. "No," he said. "My mother didn't abandon us. She took away what we didn't deserve. And she was right." Emily was speechless. "You showed her your true face," Daniel continued. "You treated her like trash, and I allowed it. But that's over." That conversation ended in a brutal fight. Emily threatened to leave. Daniel told her that if the only thing keeping her there was his mother's money, then she should go. She didn't leave, but something broke between them. The business was still struggling. Without the monthly allowance, Daniel had to learn to really manage. He cut costs, negotiated with suppliers, worked 12-hour days, and slowly it began to stabilize. It wasn't profitable yet, but it was alive. "And the kids?" I asked. Linda smiled. That's the good part. Daniel talked to them. He explained in kids' terms that he had treated his grandmother badly, that you weren't a machine for giving things, but a person who deserved love. He really did that. He did. Mason cried. He said he missed your bedtime stories. Chloe drew a heart and wrote, "For Grandma Ofe," in shaky letters. I felt my eyes fill with tears. "Daniel comes here every week," Linda continued. "Knocks on the door, sits on your porch, and waits even though you're not here. He just waits. Like he's telling you he's not giving up." I didn't say anything. I spent a week organizing my house cleaning, getting resettled. And every afternoon I'd look out the window waiting. I didn't know for what. On Saturday, while I was watering the garden, I heard the gate. It was Daniel. But he wasn't alone. Mason and Chloe were running ahead of him with drawings in their hands and nervous smiles. "Grandma!" Mason yelled and ran to me. I knelt just in time to catch them. I hugged them tightly, feeling their warm little bodies, their giggles. "We missed you," Chloe whispered. "Dad told us we were bad to you." "You weren't bad, my love. You are children. The adults were the ones who made mistakes." Daniel stood in the garden, hands in his pockets, watching me with different eyes, eyes that finally saw me. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, son. Can we talk?" I nodded. The kids ran off to play, while Daniel and I sat in the same chairs where we had shared so much coffee and so many lies. "I sold the SUV," he said right away. "I got $38,000, paid all the business debts. I also sold the home gym equipment, the big TV, things we didn't need. We're living on the basics now." "And how does that feel?" "Exhausting, but also liberating. For the first time in years, I don't owe anything. Well, except to you. But that's not paid with money." "No," I agreed. "It's not. Emily is changing. Or maybe she's just accepting things are different. She doesn't yell about money anymore. Now she yells because I'm never home because I work too much. Normal complaints, I think. Marriage complaints, not business partner complaints." "And you? How are you?" He was quiet for a long time. Tired, scared, but also proud. For the first time in my life, I'm building something with my own hands, without your money, without shortcuts. And it hurts, Mom. It hurts a lot. But it's mine. I smiled. A sad smile, but a real one. "That's all I ever wanted, son. For you to learn to stand on your own. The kids ask about you every day. Mason wants you to teach him how to make tamales like you used to. Chloe wants you to read her bedtime stories. And you, what do you want?" He looked me straight in the eye. "I want to get my mom back. Not my bank. My mom. The woman who taught me to ride a bike. The one who patched up my skinned knees. The one who held me when I had nightmares. That mom." Tears ran down my cheeks. That mom never left Daniel. She was just buried under all the invoices and checks. But I needed you to look for her, not her money. I'm sorry. For everything. For the 10 lost years. For not seeing you. For using your love like it was infinite and indestructible. "A mother's love is infinite," I said softly, "but it's not indestructible. And you almost broke it, son. Almost. 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 But I'm here. Hurt, tired, different. But I'm here." Daniel knelt in front of me just as he had in Haven Bay. "Can we start over, not like before, but as something new, something healthier, something real?" "We can try," I said finally, "but with rules. Whatever they are. You come when I invite you, not when you need something. You call me at least once a week, just to talk. No money, no favors, just to ask how I am. And the kids? The grandkids visit because they want to, not because you force them. Done. And if Emily ever treats me like that again, if she talks about me like she did that day—" "It won't happen," he interrupted. "I already spoke with her. I made it clear that if she can't respect my mother, then we will have serious problems." I nodded. I didn't trust her completely. Not yet. But it was a start. The next few months were strange, like learning to walk again after an accident. Awkward, painful, but necessary. Daniel called every Wednesday and Sunday, just to talk. He'd tell me about the business, the kids, the small victories and big defeats. And I'd tell him about my garden, my walks, my new friends at the book club I'd joined. The grandkids came on Saturdays. Not every Saturday, but enough. And when they came, it was different. They hugged me tightly. They told me their secrets. They asked for stories, recipes, time. Not gifts. Time. Emily. Emily remained distant, but politely distant. There was no more contempt in her eyes. Maybe fear. Fear that I would disappear again, and their marriage wouldn't to survive. 6 months after my return, Daniel knocked on my door on a Tuesday afternoon. He had an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a check for $5,000. "It's the first payment," he said, his voice trembling. "I know it's not much. I know it doesn't even cover 1% of what you gave. But it's mine. I earned it with my work. And I want to start not paying you back the money, but paying you back the dignity, to show you I can be the son you deserve." I stared at that check with tears in my eyes. "I don't want it," I said finally. "What?" I tore the check into pieces. "I don't want your money, Daniel. I never wanted the money back. I wanted respect, love, time, and that you're already giving me," he cried. And I cried with him, because finally, after so much pain, we were learning to be a real family. A year later, I got a call from Angel. "Ophelia, I have a proposal for you." "Tell me." "The bookstore is growing. I need help. And I was thinking, would you like to be my partner?" I was silent, feeling my heart speed up. "You don't have to decide now," he continued. "But think about it. Haven Bay misses you. I miss you." I hung up the phone with a smile. I spoke to Daniel that night, told him about the offer. "You'd leave again?" he asked, fear in his voice. "I wouldn't leave. I'd divide. A few months here, a few months there, living my life but not forgetting you. And if we need you, you'll have me. But you'll also have to learn that I deserve to live too, that I don't exist only for you." He nodded, understanding. 2 months later, I became a partner in the Books of the Sea bookstore. I invested $30,000 of my savings. Not millions, not everything I had, just what was fair. Now I spend 6 months in the city and 6 months in Haven Bay. Daniel and the kids visit me in the small town when they can. We walk on the beach, eat fresh fish, talk about life. Emily came once. She was quiet most of the time, but before she left, she told me something I never expected. Thank you for not giving up on us, even though we deserved it. I didn't answer. I just nodded. Some things don't need words. Today, as I write this, sitting on the porch of my little house by the sea, with a mug of coffee in my hands and the sound of the waves in the background, I think about everything that happened. I think about the woman I was 2 years ago, the woman who begged for love with checks, who confused being needed with being loved, who had lost herself trying to be everything to everyone. And I think about the woman I am now, the one who learned that true love can't be bought, that family is built with respect, not money, that sometimes disappearing is the only way to make them truly see you. My son isn't perfect. He probably never will be. But he's trying, and that after everything we've been through is enough. My grandkids call me Grandma Ofe, with affection, now not distance, with real love. And I finally learned something I should have learned a long time ago. The love you beg for is worthless. The respect you plead for is a lie. And the family that only looks for you when they need something isn't family, but the family that learns from its mistakes, that falls and gets back up, that hurts but also heals. That family is worth it. And most importantly, I learned that I am worth it, with or without money, with or without family. Alone or accompanied, because true wealth isn't what you possess, it's what you refuse to let anyone take from you. And I got my dignity back, and that is priceless. End. This story broke my heart because I know many of you have lived something similar. You've given everything to your families and received scraps in return. You've confused being needed with being loved. If this confession touched your heart, if you saw yourself reflected in Ophelia, leave me a comment telling me where you're watching from. Are you in the U.S.? In Canada? From another corner of the world? I would love to know these words reached you. Give it a like if you believe true love starts with loving ourselves. And subscribe to Elderly Stories to keep sharing life stories like this. Stories that hurt but also heal, because sometimes the best lessons are wrapped in the deepest wounds. See you in the next story. Take care, and remember, you are worth it too.